Bob's Burgers truly is outstanding at delivering holiday-themed episodes, but while they are heralded for their Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas episodes, I think the holiday that goes severely overlooked is Valentine's Day. Sure, they don't cover it as often, and it's a less exciting holiday overall, but it's another holiday that Bob's Burgers just seems to nail time and time again. So, to celebrate love this year, I want to talk about why we love Bob's Burgers Valentine's Day episodes.
Happy Valentine's Day. I didn't get you anything.
I didn't get you anything either. You want to go make out?
Yeah.
Though it's been on for 16 seasons, Bob's Burgers has only covered Valentine's Day in about half of its years running, delivering 8 Valentine's Day episodes total. This is quite a bit fewer than Halloween, Thanksgiving, or Christmas, for which they've done 13, 11, and 15 episodes respectively, and they haven't done a Valentine's Day episode in about 4 years. And that is a shame, because after watching all 8 episodes, I think Valentine's Day is a pretty great holiday to exemplify the strongest aspects of Bob's Burgers. When I talk about why I love Bob's Burgers, I have always gone back to that familial bond. For me, it's all about how much the family loves and cares for one another, which can be a far cry from other adult animated sitcom families. And these Valentine's Day episodes do such an outstanding job highlighting not just the concept of love or the pitfalls and stresses of dating life, but how the family shows love for one another as well. On top of that, Valentine's Day is a perfect holiday to be able to highlight the quirky romantic tendencies of characters like Linda and Tina, as well as to subvert the very unromantic tendencies of characters like Bob or Louise, and they always manage to keep these premises fresh and rarely repetitive. So let's get into Bob's first Valentine's Day episode from season 3.
Two people together forever, security in life, and someone to love ya.
My Fuzzy Valentine pretty much immediately establishes the most common through line of these episodes. Linda is super into Valentine's Day, and Bob really struggles with it.
A pancake shaped like a heart.
Wow.
I think what I like most about this first one is that Bob doesn't even really realize that he's bad at Valentine's Day and genuinely thinks he's been wowing Linda. Even Teddy and Mort know that Bob does half-assed heart-shaped gifts every year. But in classic Belcher fashion, this is a great family episode. Sure, the kids have ulterior motives to stay out of school for the day, but they also genuinely want to help Bob fix his mistake.
She deserves something nice this year. Mom's a real keeper.
This wild goose chase of an episode goes so many places and is genuinely so fun. I love that though it remains focused on Linda's gift, the story is allowed to take so many little tangents. Even something as small as the Buckle It Up song adds such charm to the adventure.
Buckle it up, buckle it up, buckle it up or you'll die.
The kids convince Bob that they know exactly which Grazielda figurine Linda wants, which, of course, they don't. This is another example of just a tiny part of the story leaving such a comedic impact, because I think the Grazielda salesman's delivery here will live in my head forever.
Perhaps you nor your wife are really serious about Grazieldas.
I really love Bob sort of figuring out how to be romantic in this episode. The kids really help him hone in on something that he can grab onto as his North Star in finding Linda the perfect gift, and he carefully thinks through his favorite memories with her. Obviously something that does not come easy to Bob. He's pretty burger-brained most of the time. He remembers a date with Linda where the car breaks down, so they move their planned picnic to a bar and do a love tester machine together. It's a really nice memory and leads to a very fun goose chase, trying to track down the actual love tester to buy for Valentine's Day. I particularly love that this episode manages to both be a really good Valentine's Day themed episode and maintain that sort of familial hook that works so well for this show. It's not just a Valentine's Day episode, it's a Bob lets the kids play hooky episode, and the sort of suburban adventure of it all is really satisfying, particularly moments like Bob slowly running the red light. This episode also gives us some classic Hugo rivalry action, as he obviously wants to prevent Bob from finding the love tester given his history with Linda. I've got to do a Hugo video one of these days. So many Bob side characters just have so much to dig into, and Hugo is a great example. He's always a fun character to have throw a wrench in things when Bob is having Linda struggles, and of course having him here be the key to finding the love tester works really well. I like that through this adventure, Bob both comes to a realization about his Valentine's failures, but also remains very stubbornly Bob about it.
This isn't about me and you. This is about giving a woman a gift to make up for years of
Crap?
well, not quite crap, Tina.
Hugo buying the love tester and then squeezing all he can out of Bob for it is great. Classic Hugo and Bob. But I think Bob paying $500 for this thing before realizing his massive mistake is even funnier. He of course realizes that he misremembered the date. It was never with Linda at all. It was with Barbara Bunkley. Huge oof, Bob. Side note, I really love the animation here when Bob realizes it was Barbara, and in his memory, Linda transforms into Barbara. The way Linda's glasses turn into Barbara's hoop earrings is a crazy detail. This is neat. Speaking of Linda, her half of the episode is less substantial, but genuinely great, particularly because it just goes a really long way to establish how much of a romantic she is. Obviously, we know she is a huge fan of Valentine's Day, but this story makes it clear that it goes even deeper than that.
Instead of being all alone. Such a lonely existence, I kill myself.
Linda doesn't just love being in love, she loves the very idea of love, and her entire subplot is trying to spread that feeling around to anyone who doesn't have it by running a last-minute speed dating night, largely for Teddy and Mort. They get a great group of side characters in here.
I want to lick this one like an envelope.
Great male jokes.
Oh, you're a mailman.
But the conflict here is pretty brilliant because they essentially bring in a character with the exact opposite view on love. Where Linda romanticizes the idea of everything romantic and is eternally optimistic, Sergeant Bosco is incredibly cynical to say the least, which is immediately established when Linda brings up his lack of a wedding ring.
I chucked it into a ravine after my divorce went through.
I love the idea of somebody just straight up challenging Linda's unimpeachable perception of love and the sheer frustration she shows when the speed daters seem to be responding better to Bosco's more cynical, straightforward approach. Rather than finding common interests like Linda suggests, Bosco wants them to all say the worst thing they've ever done in their life to see if their romantic interest can still stomach them.
Sometimes I just put the mail down the storm drain.
I pepper sprayed my barber. But I mean, look at this.
I think what I love most about this story is that it really gives them a chance to showcase just how much Linda believes in true love, how much of a romantic she really is, because she doesn't just disagree with the way Bosco's worldview is spreading across the speed dating night. She gets deeply upset about it, like he's ruining something pure and beautiful or poisoning a unicorn. And it shows the foolish lengths she would go to protect her worldview, which is to say, she would take a cop's gun and get arrested. Incredible stuff. I think the obvious highlight of the episode is this resolution. On paper, everything Bob did that day was the epitome of failure. I mean, he kept the kids out of school, drove them through a red light dangerously, took them on a wild goose chase across town, spent $500 on a love tester machine, only to realize that they were chasing the memory of a Valentine's Day he spent with another woman. But to Linda, it wasn't about the gift itself. It was about the thought and effort. And despite him messing up the details here, he absolutely put thought and lots of effort into his Valentine's Day gift for her.
That is so romantic! Aww.
Honestly, as far as Bob's Burgers Valentine's Day episodes go, I don't think they could have started stronger. Linda's overly romantic tendencies are put on full display, as are Bob's struggles to keep up with them, and it delivers an outstanding Belcher family adventure.
I wish you were in all my classes.
After a general family adventure in Season 3, Season 5's Can't Buy Me Math delivers a great Tina-centric Valentine's Day episode. And I mean, why wouldn't they? Tina's hormones are going crazy in even the least romance-focused episodes of Bob's Burgers. And as is the case with so many of these great holiday Bob's Burgers episodes, they take a classic sitcom trope and theme it to the holiday at hand. This one delivers a classic fake boyfriend/girlfriend plot where two characters pretend to be dating with ulterior motives. Though I'd say their end goal is a pretty unique twist on the idea. Tina gets a D on a math test and is in danger of having to take the remedial course, so she asks Daryl to tutor him. But Daryl's got his eyes on something non-academic, and that is Rosa Batista. Daryl hatches a plan. He'll tutor Tina if she pretends to be his girlfriend for the Valentine's dance, because he thinks that if they win Cupid's couple, it will improve their social cachet just enough that they can break up and then date who they want to date, namely Rosa Batista and Jimmy Jr.
Oh my god, are you two a couple now?
You do the math.
No.
Convoluted? Yes, but it does sure seem to work. I love how everybody kind of immediately loves Daryl and Tina as a couple, even though Daryl almost instantly starts to crack under the pressure. But this basically turns the tables on the whole tutoring angle. As the resident romantic at Wagstaff, Tina basically tutors Daryl in being a good boyfriend, which more or less is just her telling him how she would want to be treated by a boy. Honestly, even though it's all a ruse, I do find the Tina x Daryl stuff to be pretty charming, which I guess is the whole point. And I love that where he was initially struggling under the pressure of the public eye, thanks to Tina's tutoring, he makes this pretty charismatic move of his own volition, grabbing the mic at the dance and singing in front of everyone.
I wish you were in all my classes, and when we kiss, we hit our glasses.
They win Cupid's couple and of course are both immediately elevated as viable romantic interests across the school. I love that this plan just goes exactly how Daryl hoped it would, but also wouldn't have really worked without Tina guiding his actions through her boyfriend tutoring. The fake breakup scene is really fun too. It's funny that nobody is suspicious based on their public complaints about each other here.
You're just too kind and generous. It's making me sick.
Oh yeah? Well, you're too damn interesting and it's driving me nuts.
I really like that this episode isn't really about the plan going wrong and causing embarrassment. Everything actually goes off without a hitch. They really sell the relationship, and then immediately after breaking up, both Rosa and Jimmy Jr. show interest in Daryl and Tina, but they sell the relationship too well. What goes wrong is that Tina tricks herself into thinking she's actually caught feelings for Daryl. It's so funny to see her struggle with the fact that she isn't gushing over Jimmy Jr.
Those cheeks aren't leaving me weak like they usually do.
One of the things I really love about Bob's Burgers is that, in general, the stakes are kind of low and the big conflicts don't linger too long. It makes the show a little bit more of a comforting watch because each issue is resolved relatively quickly and just leads to a new one. So Tina pining over Daryl here is very brief because after she reveals the truth to everyone and admits she likes Daryl, causing Rosa to leave, she immediately realizes that this was a mistake. She wasn't actually interested in Daryl for Daryl. She liked him because she was the one guiding him to do all of the things that she wanted out of a relationship. And Daryl instantly points out that they have nothing in common by listing all of the things that he loves that Tina does not care about.
Rosa likes all that stuff.
Oh God, you and Rosa should be together.
The immediacy of this realization really makes me laugh, but I like that the conflict here shifts to winning Rosa back for Daryl. And it becomes instantly clear as they're trying to win her back that these two are clearly a good fit.
They're like Mario and Luigi. They're so in love.
God, I also need to do a video about Jocelyn. What a gem. I also love the reveal that Tina still sucks at math and never manages to get above a D, with the weirdly happy ending that Jimmy Jr. is also in the remedial class. A great way to bring it back around. This episode also has a great, albeit less substantial, Bob and Linda Valentine story, once again highlighting Linda's love of the holiday and romance, and Bob's struggles with it. But to mitigate the disparity in their ability to Valentine, Linda makes a Valentine advent calendar, so all of their romantic plans are laid out for 6 straight days. Bob just has to follow along, including sexy cooking and a bubble bath. This has so many good laughs, but the real core of the conflict here is that Bob is picking apart every single thing in the moment and struggling to connect with the romance of it all. And sure, he's got pretty good reasons to. The dish rag touching that strawberry in Lynn's pocket is pretty gross, but it's largely about Bob refusing to leave his comfort zone for the sake of his partner, which makes the big final beat hit really well comedically. Bob actually goes through with doing a strip tease for Linda, which on its own is so far out for him. But then, on top of that, he doesn't realize that people are straight up watching him through the window, not just pushing him out of his comfort zone, but basically airlifting him from it. But God bless him, Bob gets over it and continues his striptease in front of the strangers, a gesture that is surely seen as peak romance for Linda Belcher. Even in these small subplots, they manage to find great little arcs for their characters, all built around the well-established character dynamics. Another really strong episode across the board.
Throw your lunches away.
For season 6, Bob's Burgers gave us a Gene-focused episode titled The Gene and Courtney Show, and while Gene isn't unromantic, it's definitely less expected than, say, a Linda or Tina episode. But this one also acts as a sort of sequel to the season 3 episode, The Unbearable Likeness of Gene, in which Gene and Courtney briefly dated. But by playing off of that previous story, I think this makes a very fun, subversive episode for Gene. That season 3 episode basically had Gene sort of string Courtney along, even though he wasn't actually into her. He was basically using her for her dad's music equipment. Gene more or less learns his lesson, and after that, he and Courtney sort of have a friendly rivalry, as showcased in Work Hard or Die Trying Girl. But this one, once again, puts romance between them, but not immediately. And I love how they sort of reconnect here. They both loathe sitting through the morning announcements, and they sort of improv songs about them together, cracking up their entire class.
Here's an announcement, and I'm not joking.
Miss Levans, you need to stop smoking.
High five!
I like Gene and Courtney's sort of ongoing bonding through performing. It's a great through line. Mr. Grant sees their chemistry and talent and decides that they should actually get a spot improvising songs for the actual morning announcements, something the current announcer, Miss Lebons, is comically upset about. But despite her attempts at sabotage, it actually goes great, and the entire school loves their chemistry as well.
Gene and Courtney are like the Siegfried and Roy of this school.
But what I really love about this episode is specifically Gene's growth and development. Where he really couldn't stand Courtney for a lot of reasons back in season 3, their performance chemistry really shifts his perspective here, and he's continually impressed by her songs and improvisations. It's a fun and natural escalation that speaks to Gene's interests, which leads to them getting back together, this time through mutual interest.
What's going on with our hands?
We're holding them.
How long have we been doing that?
Courtney's father, Doug, also makes me laugh a ton in this episode. Almost all Bob's Burgers characters have some less than stellar quirks while also remaining pretty good people, and it shows that even though he's sort of a dance mom of a dad, as showcased by lines like this,
Nothing's better for a child than being in showbiz.
he's also really protective and looking out for his daughter. He even confronts Gene, concerned that he's going to break her heart again, and I love this development for Gene because it feels really earnest.
All I know is we have fun together, and holding hands with her feels like holding a hand for the very first time.
But of course, the subversion here is that after breaking Courtney's heart last time, Gene is the victim of heartbreak here. Because once they start seeing each other romantically, they completely lose their performance chemistry and botch the announcements. A perfect Gene conundrum. Choose between your dreams or love. And of course, this time, Courtney is the one who chooses their work relationship over their romantic relationship, and Gene has to keep his adverse feelings to himself, making this a pretty great sequel to that first Gene/Courtney affair. It was kinda sweet to see Gene just tossing and turning in bed, worked up over this. Poor little guy was really into the relationship this time. And the resolution is pretty sweet as well, as they mostly rock the announcements, and then Gene sings a song from the heart specifically for Courtney.
You may have found your one and only, but then the one you like says take a hike, and suddenly you're lonely.
They win over the school and keep the gig, and though there's no firm resolution to the Gene x Courtney situation, it does get this sweet ending.
Put her there.
Mwah. I mean, it is Valentine's Day.
There are also two intertwining subplots to this episode surrounding Bob and Tina. Tina is running a carnation donation situation at school where you can send carnations and cards to a Valentine. Tina is stressing over not getting any carnations, while Bob is worried because he didn't get any carnations. Hey, like father, like daughter, right? But obviously Tina is stressed because she wants Jimmy Jr. to send her a Valentine, and Bob just entirely forgot to supply the carnation donation with carnations. Tina completely spirals, opening everybody else's carnation cards, feeling completely rejected, comparing herself to everybody else.
Jocelyn got 4?
Meanwhile, Bob has to pretend that he got the carnations while he desperately tries to track them down, 250 of them to be exact, all in the days leading up to Valentine's Day. He gets laughed at a lot in this episode. These are two fun surrounding plots that highlight both Tina and Bob's shortcomings in a super Valentine-centric way. Bob ends up getting fully taken advantage of at a flower market, but he does get the carnations, and Tina has to accept that she didn't get any Valentines, which fittingly, Gene's song sort of helps her do.
Even if you're sad, take comfort just in knowing you'll be okay.
Of course, Tina did actually get a Valentine. Jimmy Jr. gives her a rose instead of a carnation. She was catastrophizing for no reason. Tina, always a relatable one. Overall, this is a very solid third V-Day entry from Bob's Burgers. A Gene-focused episode wasn't necessarily what I'd have expected, but it works really well given Gene and Courtney's history, and I love a good emotional song tying a story together. That's just always gonna hit me perfectly. And obviously, it works particularly well for Gene and Courtney as characters. It's cool to see, even just 3 Valentine specials deep, how good they are at telling a variety of kinds of stories, utilizing these romantic themes, and they don't stop there. Bob Actually is for sure my favorite Bob's Burgers Valentine's Day episode, obviously titled after the film Love Actually and loosely based on it in structure, very loosely, really only in that it's a story filled with intertwining vignettes. And that's one of the things I love about this episode. Every member of the Belcher family gets their own little Valentine's Day subplot. Obviously they vary in size and focus, but I really like that they all get their time to shine in this one. Diarrhea throws a wrench in Tina's Valentine's Day rendezvous with Jimmy Jr., Jean falls in love with a new lunch lady, Linda tries to reconnect a heartbroken woman with her ex, Bob takes a dance class as a romantic gesture, and Louise navigates her suspicions that regular-sized Rudy has a crush on her. Lots going on, and each one hones in on aspects of each Belcher family member in ways that make for great Valentine stories. And the opening scene does a great job planting the seeds for every single one of these stories. As usual, it portrays Linda's love of Valentine's Day and her attempts to spread that love to everyone else around her, in this instance by passing out Valentine's cards to the kids and a box of chocolates for Bob. When Louise gets her card, she expresses a sentiment that is core to her journey in this episode.
I don't really celebrate Valentine's Day. It's an invented holiday.
We learn Tina isn't feeling well because she won a leftover chili eating contest, but still wants to go to school because anything can happen on Valentine's Day. Bob pretty quickly reveals that he, as usual, was not on top of his Valentine's gift this year, and then a pretty funny Jean line that feels like a throwaway gag actually sets up his little vignette as well.
Dark chocolate, so dry, so bitter, why?
This scene is truly like 1 minute long and sets up everything for the episode. Good economic storytelling. I'm gonna go through each one by one before we get to the big finale, so let's start with the patriarch, Bob. As we're used to at this point, Valentine's is often an afterthought for Bob, and Teddy suggests he take a ballroom dancing class so that he can take Linda dancing. A great gift idea, and honestly, it's pretty surprising how quickly Bob kind of jumps into this, since dancing feels very out of his comfort zone. Unfortunately, that ballroom dancing class does not exist anymore, and he just has to take the next available dance class, which is hip-hop dancing. Now that is truly out of Bob's comfort zone. I love that this story plays off Bob's desperation. He has no other option, so he just takes the hip-hop class.
You know why? Because that's hip-hop.
Right.
I honestly think this entire plot is worth it just to see Bob interact with this weird hip-hop mother-son duo, and of course hip-hop dance himself. It's pretty separated from everything else, but it's very funny. I thought Tina's subplot here was pretty inspired as well. I think we expected her upset stomach would hinder something in the Jimmy Jr. plus romance department, but the scenario here is so silly. Jimmy Jr. does want to kiss Tina for Valentine's Day, but he wants to do a sky kiss with them both jumping on the trampoline. We all know diarrhea and trampolines go together like, well, I'm not gonna finish that sentence. It is such a funny Tina conundrum. It feels like it's rare for Jimmy Jr. to be the one stoking the romantic flames with the whole will they won't they thing, and so for him to not just be pursuing a kiss with Tina, but doing so in a big, exciting public way, that's a huge deal for Tina as a character. Of course, it happens on her own personal D-Day, with the D, of course, standing for diarrhea. Her resolution here was also pretty fun, discovering a pair of stilts she can stand on so Jimmy Jr. can still jump up to kiss her without her shaking things up for herself too badly. Though, if I were Tina, I would also be worried about bathroom access when I'm up on those stilts, but that's just me. Linda's subplot is very funny and another great Linda tries to spread Valentine's love type story, where she tries to console Miss Selbo, who's getting over a breakup, and is also insane, revealing that she stalked her ex, peed on his mail, and stole his dog.
But I did those things.
Also, that they've been broken up for like a year. It's just taken her this long to get over it. Linda tries to reconcile them, only to find Miss Selbo making out with a stranger in the restaurant as soon as she does.
Quick question. Do you think I could have my dog back?
You're so desperate.
I guess if I had any criticism of this episode, it's that Linda didn't actually get to spread the love like she wanted to, and I like seeing Linda's love of love on full display, but she did at least get Martin his dog back, so that's a win. Gene's subplot is definitely one of my favorites of the episode. He takes a trip to the lunchroom for some leftover tacos, something he implicitly does every week, only to find the usual lunch lady is gone and replaced by Isabella. I love Gene's just like absolutely confused attraction attraction here. It's so funny. But this plays so well by intertwining that attraction with his love of food and his distaste for dark chocolate, which is actually what Isabella is making here. But Isabella's sort of philosophical, poetic rambling about dark chocolate and love here is one of my favorite little pieces of writing in the show.
Dark chocolate? No, don't do it!
It is like love, sweet, bitter, happy, sad.
I feel like you might expect food to be the thing that helps Gene get to the core of some kind of a love story, but I like the subversion here, that it's actually love that helps him better understand a food he has a dislike for. But the absolute highlight of this episode, and the real meat and potatoes of the story, is the Louise and Rudy storyline. Louise and Rudy have a super interesting dynamic and friendship. I actually talk about it and this episode a lot in my big Rudy character video, so check that out if you haven't seen it. But I love this as a real subversion for Louise. Definitely the least romance-driven member of the Belcher family, the story is conveyed from, I think, a super smart and understandable angle for Louise. When she thinks that Rudy's awkward probing means he's going to ask her to be his Valentine, she pretty understandably is concerned about this. She has a great friendship with Rudy and doesn't want that to change.
We have a good thing going the way it is. We're buddies.
It's a good conundrum for Louise, but I think the smartest thing they do here is subvert it even further. It turns out Rudy was actually going to ask Louise to give Chloe Barbash his Valentine for him. His entire plan was to meet her after school and get his first ever kiss.
Now we begin Operation Kiss Chloe Barbash.
There are two aspects of Louise's shift here that I love. For one, I like the idea that she was just so sure and so confident that Rudy was crushing on her that she's actually skewing towards jealousy when she finds out that isn't true. It's a conflict that confuses even herself, which is a perfect angle for Louise because she's somebody who is generally very sure of herself. But I also love that on top of struggling to grapple with her own jealousy, Louise also becomes super protective of Rudy, to the point where she is furious at Chloe's indifference towards him and insists that Chloe goes through with the kiss. I think that this is such a great way to showcase how much Louise cares about Rudy, that even through her admittedly confusing romantic feelings in the episode, the thing that hurts her most is the idea of seeing Rudy's disappointment and heartbreak.
You gotta kiss slow, regular size Rudy, or you're gonna be eating that lovely through a straw.
The end of the story really facilitates the big climax of the episode. Louise shows up after school to try and gently let Rudy down and tell him that Chloe is not going to be showing up, and it's because she genuinely cares about Rudy.
I guess I was silly to think I could get a kiss on Valentine.
The episode crescendos beautifully here, with the unexpected Louise-Rudy kiss leading to a montage of Valentine's kisses from across all of the other vignettes in the episode. It is such a brilliantly written and well intertwined climax. Plus, Louise's conflicted feelings are perfectly conveyed with this post-makeout slap. Truly just a great way to end the episode, and very easily one of my favorite Louise stories in the entire series. Rudy is also one of my absolute favorite characters. He and Louise have such a great dynamic, and I love the way this episode not only dives into that dynamic, but evolves it in a way that facilitates growth for both characters. This is the best Bob's Burgers Valentine's Day episode, and one of the best episodes of the entire series.
This is a girl power jam. We're all girls. No, man!
V for Valentine Detta is probably my next favorite Bob's V-Day special after Bob Actually, and it's because it really stands out thematically. Though this episode is built on a storyline about romantic love, it's ultimately a story about other types of love, and I really love the setup here. Tina is extra stressed about Valentine's Day because Jimmy Jr. asked Becky Crespi to be his Valentine instead of Tina, which, you know, Tina stressing about Jimmy Jr. isn't anything new, but Linda hatches a great plan here. Bob and Linda both got each other Valentine's Day gifts with coupons, basically something for them to do together. Bob got Linda a limo ride, and Linda is keeping hers secret. But instead of pursuing their romantic evening, they pivot and decide that the girls are going to take a much needed night out in the limo, while Bob and Jean go do the class that Linda planned. I think this really exemplifies these characters and the more important aspects of their dynamics. So often the Belcher family will selflessly drop anything to help one another, even dip on their own holiday plans. The limo storyline also introduces Nat, who is an incredibly funny character and really spices up the entire evening. She pretty immediately suggests that they try to sabotage Jimmy Jr.'s date.
Terrible name. I hate him because of his name.
But first they try your classic cheer-me-ups, including a makeover and a trip to the Tiramisu Warehouse. Side note, Tiramisu Warehouse is such a funny Cheesecake Factory parody name. Great stuff, Bob's writers. That's so funny. But I love that while it sort of felt like everyone was just kind of trying to humor and support Tina for what felt like a typical Jimmy Jr. crash out, there's this this one moment where they all unanimously agree that this is different.
I made him a special picture frame for Valentine's Day with a picture of us in it, but then he hung it in his locker with a picture of Becky in it.
Hey, what? That son of a bitch.
Nat's influence here is so funny because she is just chaos incarnate, trying to get them to stink bomb Jimmy Jr.'s date with Becky, but I think the episode ultimately has a really great moment of growth and understanding for Tina, and also just a great lesson about jealousy all around. Tina and the gang were going to go to great lengths for revenge because Jimmy Jr. disrespected Tina, but Tina realized that she was also aiming that jealousy at Becky, who is essentially an innocent bystander here. I love that Tina recognizes that if she goes through with the stink bomb plan, she's essentially doing to Becky what Jimmy Jr. did to Tina.
You didn't do anything to hurt me on purpose, and I won't do anything to hurt you. You don't deserve to have your date ruined.
I love that Bob's has this flexibility to approach these kinds of romantic stories from so many angles, and it rarely feels like they do the same thing twice. Having Tina empathize with the person she felt this rivalry with is such a great angle and one that lines up with the values of the show really effectively. And this episode is also largely about women having each other's backs. The entire limo adventure was a girls' night out to help Tina get over her spiral, and in the end, they also all show up for Becky, because Jimmy Jr. pretty much immediately breaks things off with her in the middle of their Valentine's date, by the way. And instead of Tina taking the opportunity to get Jimmy Jr. back, she and the girl gang choose to protect Becky, rushing her out the restaurant and stink bombing Jimmy Jr. Really funny stuff. Obviously, Bob's is a show that can go really heavy into the romance and relationship focused stories, but I really appreciate that they can also subvert those stories to be about different kinds of connection.
Valentine's Day is way more fun when you spend it with people you really love, like your mom and your sister, and your limo driver, and a girl from your school you don't know that well.
And this message also lends to that Bob and Jean subplot as well, which of course veers pretty far from the Valentine's Day of it all, but still ends up in a remarkably wholesome way. It turns out Linda signed herself and Bob up for a trapeze class, and Bob and Jean try it themselves. The entire episode is spent with the pair suspended in midair, holding on to each other for dear life because they're too afraid to let go. A super funny Bob and Jean story, truly. I love this moment where Bob gets his act together and is genuinely reaffirming and considerate towards Jean, really saying all the right things as a dad, promising everything will be okay if they let go.
I am your dad. I will not let anything bad happen to you.
Only for him to still be too afraid to let go himself. Amazing stuff. This story is basically just a couple beats and it's pretty bare bones, but it is just so funny and satisfying, and the resolution honestly hits really effectively. They finally let go, and they actually both loved the experience in the end, despite remaining suspended for like an hour. And it gives us this nice parallel boys' night bonding experience to the girls' limo adventure.
I love you, Dad. I love you too, pal.
This is seriously a top tier Bob's Burgers Valentine's Day episode, one of my favorites.
Jumping on the bed. Jumping on the bed.
Adult animated sitcoms are no strangers to the sort of non-canon 3-part anthology story structures. You got your Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors, your Futurama Anthology of Interests, your Family Guy viewer mails. And while this isn't generally my favorite format, I've got to give credit to Bob's Burgers for always finding a unique angle to these kinds of episodes, where many of them break the fourth wall or go completely non-canon. Often Bob's facilitates these stories by having them be told by the Belcher kids. You've got your Frond Files, your Gale Tales, but Bed Bob and Beyond even subverts this format a slight step further, having all 3 kids recount different parts of what is supposed to be the same movie. And I also love that they managed to find a reason to do this kind of an episode while maintaining that Valentine's theming. The episode starts with the whole family in the car on the way to the movies on Valentine's Day, with Bob and Linda clearly bottling up some frustrations with each other, which the kids pick up on. I like that the first chunk of this episode is almost entirely conveyed through hushed whispers between the kids, but Louise ends up telling Tina and Jean about their parents' very stupid fight. Linda tripped over Bob's dirty laundry and Bob refused to move it, and they're just full-on miffed at each other over it.
I'm never gonna be your Michael Bolton.
You don't even try to be him, Bob!
I grew my hair long once!
This is a fun storyline because these kinds of stupid little fights do absolutely happen, especially when you're in a long-term relationship, and exploring that through how it's affecting the kids is a fun angle, even though the kids' motives are actually pretty selfish, because they're actually just worried that their parents' bad mood is gonna make them extra angry when they find out that they broke Jean's bed. They're hoping that the rom-com they're going to see as a family, Double-Decker Love, will cheer their parents up, but a popcorn-related fire ends the movie early, and in a desperate attempt to put Bob and Linda in a better mood before they get home, the kids start recounting the rest of the movie to them, but obviously they're just making it up as they go. There are a lot of details I really like about how this episode plays out. For one, each of the kids' section of the movie says a lot about who they are as characters, and the movies they pull from are all really well conceived. Gene's first section just becomes Speed, but in London, and since he's the first up, he establishes all of the important character facts, like that their names are Princess Paula McCartney and Scott John Dan Steve. I also love that the story is filled with Gene's childlike misconceptions about the things he's heard about London. He thinks Big Ben is just a guy, and he thinks that the tube is like a literal tube. I think one of the reasons this show works so well is because the kids always really feel like kids. They feel like they're exploring childlike feelings and thoughts, not like it's an adult writer's feelings filtered through a child character. All three parts of the story start to incorporate things to try and subtly lead Bob and Linda to reconciliation, like the speed bus having to avoid giant piles of laundry. Pretty fun. But despite his valiant attempts, Gene's story doesn't quite get them there.
Too bad life isn't like a movie. People disappoint you.
As you might expect, Tina's story takes a more romantic angle. She bases hers off of Titanic, complete with a laundry berg that sinks the ship. This also has what is probably one of the most risque jokes I've ever heard on Bob's Burgers, and it is very funny.
Seamen spill it all over the deck.
Tina! Oh, wait, you mean sailors.
Obviously, Tina's story doesn't work either, but I love that every time a kid insists that there's more, Linda seems genuinely interested to hear. Louise's story takes a more straightforward approach, basically exactly recreating Linda and Bob's conflict with Princess Paula McCartney and Scott John Dan Steve. I don't know if her movie is supposed to be Twister or Sharknado, but it devolves into a laundry tornado that somehow convinces them both to apologize, which finally works, and I love Bob and Linda's reaction to the last story.
That was my favorite movie I've never seen.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Are you crying, Dad?
No, my cheeks are just sweaty.
Overall, this one definitely ranks a bit lower for me in my Bob's Valentine's Day episode preferences, but that's largely because I just gravitate away from the anthology episodes in general. There's still so much to love and appreciate about this one, and I have a lot of respect for the way the show always manages to approach these anthology stories from a new angle every time.
It's okay, we're just children watching you. It's okay, we're just children watching you.
Romancing the Beef is another great V-Day entry, this time finally acknowledging the world of Valentine's Day dining, and given that the show is about a restaurant, it's kind of wild that it took this long. Obviously, a burger joint isn't a Valentine's Day destination, but I really like the angle here. When Jimmy Pesto gloats about his fully booked restaurant, Louise suggests that they could stay open for the bad Valentine's Day planners who failed to get a reservation anywhere, which leads them to quickly rework the burger joint into a classier spot. They move the tables out to create two tops, they change the lighting, they call it Urge using just part of the Bob's Burger sign, and Bob makes steaks on a prefixed menu. I love that Bob gets most excited about food-related things, and the idea that he can class up his restaurant a little is a point of pride for him here, though he and Linda also have to continually postpone their own Valentine's Day plans for this new one. They intended to split a bottle of wine and list 10 things they love about one another, which I think is actually a really cute date idea. But this is a fun premise because it not only creates for fun drama, with Bob and Linda trying to run a fancier restaurant, but gives an opportunity to showcase a real variety of Valentine's dates and blunders.
Am I a professional restaurant reservationist? No, I'm a professional doctor.
Don't I'm a doctor me. I'm a doctor too.
I also love that this episode brings in a staple of the Thanksgiving episodes, Bob making food talk with little voices, though he gives his chuck steak a very different voice than the turkey's.
So you gonna grind me up or what?
And I like that the primary plan just totally goes off without a hitch. They fill the restaurant and even have a waiting list. They did a great job making it look nicer and classier. But the problem isn't the success of the restaurant, it's that Hugo shows up for a blind Valentine's date that his mother set him up for. Classic. The one guy who can literally shut down their makeshift restaurant shows up. And this more or less turns into a Hugo episode here, which is pretty fun. When his date doesn't show up on time, he starts to spiral, with the game becoming keep Hugo happy or I'll shut down the restaurant.
I think the only possible way I'm gonna feel better is to have the fire department shut you down.
down.
It's honestly so funny how often Bob's livelihood is just at the whims of Hugo, who is, frankly, an insane person. The episode involves a lot of stalling and lying and near restaurant shutdowns. It's all a solidly woven web of drama. I really enjoyed this one. It's also just cool to see the restaurant in a bit of a different light. Obviously, the nature of the show is that the Belchers are these scrappy underdogs, but part of me would genuinely like to see a world where Bob runs a classier eatery. I also think the lesson here is one of my favorites in any of these V-Day episodes, stated pretty clearly by Linda here, about how Valentine's Day can sort of act as this magnet for romance in a relationship, when in reality, there's no reason not to spread that romance out a little bit more.
Maybe all that junk just adds to the pressure that everything's got to be perfect on this one night.
I also had like this pretty funny moment watching this one where when Bob and Linda start publicly stating the 10 things they love about each other in front of the entire customer base, I said, oh God, are they really going to do 10 of these? Right before this line dropped.
Oh my God, are you really doing 10 of these?
As much as I enjoy this primary restaurant plot, I love Tina's B story in this one. Jimmy Jr. is out of town, and so she goes to Tammy's anti-Valentine's Day party for all the kids without Valentines.
Hearts are farts, and Cupid is stupid.
This subplot does something that Bob's Burgers does really well, which is layer the tone of a different kind of themed episode onto this Valentine's Day plot. And like the Bleakening or Dawn of the Peck for Christmas and Thanksgiving, this subplot gets a solid horror angle. Basically, as you might expect out of her, Tammy's party was a poorly disguised way for singles to hook up on Valentine's Day. I think just about everybody else at the party understood this, but Tina was staunchly anti-Valentine. And despite this, she still ends up alone with a boy.
Just because we're the only ones not kissing doesn't mean we're gonna kiss.
I love this final sequence where these two run around the house as though they're trying to escape some kind of a monster, but in this, the monster is just kissing. Every door they open, two classmates making out. Simple, but a really funny idea. Though I do think that I am maybe a little disappointed in the resolution. She does get a nice Valentine's Day text from Jimmy Jr., but girl, it's been a long time and Jimmy Jr. kinda sucks. You escaped a haunted house with this other guy. I feel like you had chemistry. Oh well. I don't think they're ever gonna nix the whole Tina x Jimmy Jr. status quo, but sometimes it feels like they should. Overall, this is definitely one of the better Valentine's adventures for Bob's Burgers. And we've reached the, at least for now, final Bob's Burgers Valentine's Day episode. Ferry on, my wayward Bob and Linda. An outstanding way to go out. Again, at least for now. Bob and Linda are talking about their relatively lame plans for Valentine's Day when Bob gets a major compliment from a customer.
From one chef to another.
I love that though Bob remains a scrappy underdog throughout the show and never sees major life-altering success, it is clear that he is a great chef, as showcased by this compliment from a very successful fellow chef. It turns out she owns a restaurant on King's Head Island called Tomato Shack, and the premise here is that she's so impressed by Bob's burger that she invites him and Linda to a friends-only V-Day dinner that she's putting on herself. And this basically turns into, for all the wrong reasons, an unforgettable date night for Bob and Linda. Obviously, they've got to take the ferry to King's Head Island, which they barely make, but as it turns out, they get on the wrong one that's going to the further, more rural, remote part of the island. Great premise, and I love anything that expands the lore of King's Head Island. All these little snafus they keep running into that make them later and later, they're so funny, and the detail that King's Head Island only has 3 cab drivers, one of them who won't drive at night, and the other 2 being married to each other, making them busy on Valentine's Day. That is so funny. This farmer that ultimately gives them a ride was also hysterical.
Uh-oh, let me guess. Wrong ferry?
Bob and Linda wrangling sheep instead of having a fancy dinner. And I mean, the fact that she has a sheepdog that can't help because he's allergic to sheep, outstanding stuff. I think the ending of this one really works as well. Bob and Linda arrive late, covered in mud and sheep poop, and Bob just doesn't even want to go in. And how can you blame him? But Linda gives him this pep talk story about the time she ran the table in air hockey at a bar.
Linda, I know about Hockey Queen. Sometimes you still make me call you that.
It kind of comes out of nowhere, but I like the message. The idea that you can have a down moment, you can be off your game, but then you can move past it and people will forget. You don't have to linger in your failures. You can climb out of that hole. I really like the everything goes wrong date night trope, and it works especially well for Bob and Linda because honestly, I feel like it's a real microcosm of their lives and what this show is all about. Life kind of drags Bob and Linda through the mud sometimes, but they get through it together and as a family. As long as they're there for each other, the tougher parts of life are palatable. And even though I wanted to see how Bob and Linda were reacting reacted to and how the dinner went when they arrived at Tomato Shack, that was obviously not what the episode was about. The important thing is that they went through that door into the restaurant together afterwards. The story was the journey, not the destination. And even though this was an awful night for them in the moment, this will forever be a bonding experience and one of their favorite stories to reminisce about, that terrible Valentine's Day adventure. The B story here was also pretty charming, with Jen coming over to babysit the kids for the evening. Jen is such a funny character. She is so weird and quirky. This line killed me.
We'll be back around 11.
Oh, the clock?
Yeah.
Just checking.
But this turns out to be a pretty sweet one. Louise and the kids want to take advantage of Jen's naivete so that they can get to the drugstore and buy some discounted Valentine's candy. But for the first time ever, Jen kind of puts her foot down and decides to do her own thing, inviting a guy over to help her notarize some things. I love that to Jen, notarizing is this hot, steamy activity.
Let's crack the old briefcase.
Yes, please. Crack the briefcase.
I also love that her crush, Christopher, is played by Joe Pera. Fun fact, I saw Joe Pera perform live years ago, before he blew up, and I found him funny, but specifically remember saying, I just don't know how far this guy can take the old man gimmick. And damn did he show me. Homie got his own show. But I love that Bob's has such a wide cast of great side characters that even somebody like Jen can get a cute little Valentine's Day focus.
Enjoy your Valentine's.
This episode is a very strong end to our Bobbentine's journey. So there it is, all 8 Bob's Burgers Valentine's Day episodes so far, hopefully. I really do think that these get overlooked in the conversation about how great Bob's Burgers is at holiday stories. It feels like Valentine's Day almost offers them the most flexibility in being able to highlight many different aspects of what makes Bob's Burgers work so well. Not to mention that the show just has some top-tier, overly romantic characters. I hope they go back to throwing these in the annual lineup soon because it's been too long at this point. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment below with your favorite Bob's Burgers Valentine's Day episodes, why it's your fave, hell, even give me your ranking if you want, and happy Valentine's Day.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.
मिनट रे तो हो जाते कि 15 मिनट से केतनो देखे छै तो 8 मिनट का अथी होय छै कि 15 मिनट के वीडियो अथी नाच रे या 20 मिनट के नाच रे 15 मिनट के वीडियो ये जरा सारा के ना चैनल 2000 वाला ओए पर डाल दो बहुत है यार कोनो पर डाल सब पर डाले के एब्सेंट हो जाए ले ले अरे यार ना हो ई कहाँ जाए छ जान से ज्यादा मसाला लगे फेंकिए ना रे जरा तो कबाड़ू पर सब ईटा हटा लो आधा वाला गिर गया
ठंडा खत्म हो ले लास्ट
अरे आधा वाला हटा भाई वाला
पार्टी की कर दे पार्टी की कर दे आज
कॉफी का
हैं
रात बालू वाला से बात होलो तो कहले कि जा रहे लाने अब देखू कहाँ है की पता ना है तो बात करते ही ना शाम तो हो गए ना कि ये ना है कि फिर हेर फेर कर देते तो
नहीं तो कैसे हो कौन बात है इधर पॉइंट भाव कैसी कोई गारंटी है तो रोले या दे लड़ाई हो जाएगा मिलने वाले भाग के कोई गारंटी खाली दिखाई बात बोले के बस अरे बाप रे अच्छा ज्यादा ईटा खोल कम में ईटा होते ना तैयो लेकिन 500 से कम मीटर होते
500 होगा
चारों तरफ ईटा है यहू तो नीचे ईटा
पगला लाते हाथ में दे भी कोई से फेंक रहा हाथ में दो ना तो लेके जा
नीचे खाना है तो ईटा निकल गया
फेंका फेंकी ना कर फेंका फेंको बोल नहीं कर
लेबर ऐसा न है एकदम सही बना ले ऊपर मैं ओरिजिनल सीढ़ी तोड़ के रोड गेट बना दे इतना मस्त सीढ़ी है ये लाइट हटे चल इसराइल ले गेल हां तखानी
तोरा रह गया उधर
लाइट है लाइट है ना रात में कहीं दिक्कत हो जाएगा ये देखिए ना कहाँ से गड़बड़ी है एन्ने है देखिए तो एन्ने है हाँ
लाइन है तोरा ना हो
चेंजर गिराले है कि
हाँ हाँ
दे तो मन कर
मन डाले
यहाँ ये पूरा पत्थर बना
है
बहुत सुता दिले और खड़ा कर देती वो सीढ़ी पर से गिर
सही है
ये घर बना चाहिए तब पर गली न तो सब टूट गए
ना
नीचे डाल दे
ना हाँ लाइट
लाइटे ना है
नीचे डाल
लाइट है सबके घर में
अच्छा अब वो इलाज करना ला 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 ए भागलपुरी नहीं ले गए हो गया
लेने जो कहाँ लेने जो दुरूद की सम्मा वाला नाच से बुलाया इनकी एक ही वो नाच कर लिया
पहले पढ़ता
हाँ अब हमने बैग में आती वाला जो अभी चल रहा है रनिंग में वाला डाल दो
₹5 दी 20 ही दी सारा
सीढ़ी के काम कर दिए भाई तो बकरी की क्या पिया
दादी चढ़ते अब आदत खत्म हो गई तो सीढ़ी पर
ला ला उन्हें से ईटा भरा दो इंदिरावास छोड़ता है या बिरयानी में जाता है छोटा है की केकरा पर चढ़ रही है केकरा ला चढ़ रही है कौन चढ़वा रही है कौन चढ़ा रहा चलियावा छोरा अगर फोन करा तो सुमित बा के पोल पर नंबर होता कहू तो तनका काला खराब कर ली
ना लगे
छोड़ी हो रे
माल दे
छोड़ी है
चोट नहीं लगेगा
ऐसी ना लगता
छोरा नमाज न पढ़ ले जाके बिरयानी खा के ले
ठीक है
क्या बुट्टी गली क्या बुट्टी
ए ला तरे भूख ला निकल पोल टूटा लो तनका आराम ले चल
जी नहीं क्या बुट्टी खा ले बदीजा
वो क्या जगह यही चमकारे
होने वाला सिस्टम कल को है तो हमको दे दीजिए 400 रुपये लेके वो चल कहना चाहती एक दिन बिरयानी खिला दो कह दिए
पैसा नहीं देंगे हम
ऐसा ही तो अपने कथी का
वही ना
कोनी आके
खानी है कितना पर लीजिएगा खानी है अरे हैदर के सिस्टम में क्या है ना कि मतलब हर एक काम होगा कि नहीं होगा लेकिन वो सब खाना है ना सब खान दिया कितना अंडा रही हो इतना होता ही अंडा देखो कल
लेकिन स्टाइल खाने वाला के रहले सब साला गजब खड्डा मान के चले चारों का 250 वाले खाने का ही तो बीच में ताती का अल्लाह है तो अलगे पैसा ना बढ़ेगा कि चार को तो कर
ला 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 रे बैठना जो हूँ पड़ेगा वो देख रहा चाहे और बढ़ा के रखा है
छेनी वो होते हैं 3 बड़ा लेवल से समझ 10 छेनी लगी जल्दी लाना तो सूत्र
ए बड़का छेनी की होगी
बड़का छेनी ऊपर हो की अम्मी इधर देखी तो छेनी है इस साइड में
ला इतना लाख दिए बाजी कब बिना की हो गए खेरी बाहर रहले हम तो ये ले लेती बीने से कौन ले ले नहीं तो डब्बा में है कि रे पर हो ऐसी छोड़ा रहे थे ना से हम करवाई था छेनी कहाँ रख ली बड़का वाला रहा ना चपटा वाला वो हमको नहीं पता छेनी उन्हीं आपकी उधर देख बिना ही है पर दोपहर में रहा है मिस्टर भाई के वीडियो डाले देखिए जल्दी जल्दी अब टाइम ना